You ever watch a whole empire drown overnight? Let me tell you, it's a sight. Not the kind you see on the news, unless, of course, you count the local station. Running drone shots over 139 luxury cabins, half underwater, HOA president, screaming at the sky, and me, Evan McRae, standing there with a mug of black coffee, watching the lake. Do what lakes do best. Remind folks who's in charge. Yeah, that happened. And all because Sloan Whitfield, our platinum-smiled HOA queen, forgot to ask one tiny question before building her kingdom: who controls the water? Now let me back up a sec. I'm not some reclusive crank up in the hills, much as Sloan likes to say it. I'm the fifth-generation steward of Lake Kestrel, and this old stone lodge perched above the water's been in my family since my great-granddad dammed the valley back in 1928. There's a line in our deed buried among 1,000 lawyer words that says, "Who gets to turn the wheel on the dam?" Spoiler alert, it's me. Always has been. Sloan Whitfield, though, she had other plans. You should have seen her white Escalade purring like a show pony, hair platinum and sprayed stiff enough to deflect a hailstorm, clutching a clipboard stamped with Kestrel Ridge HOA in gold. She decided my shoreline was her sandbox, slapped a forged plat on the county desk, and before I could say trespass, 139 concrete slabs had popped up like mushrooms after rainstring lights. Prefab decks, marshmallows roasting by my water, no permits, no permission. Just pure weaponized HOA arrogance. Now I'm an engineer by trade. I believe in data, not drama. First time I got that glossy HOA newsletter, exciting expansion community recreation area coming soon, I almost laughed. Volleyball courts, kayak racks, kids grinning on the digital renderings. All smack dab in the northern cove, my land, my taxes, my lake bed. At first I figured some intern screwed up the coordinates. But when I pulled up the county plat and overlaid it with my survey, well, let's just say their error claimed a solid 50 acres of my shoreline, including the gentle slope where my granddad used to fish for bass before the war. Yeah, it wasn't an accident. Someone paid a surveyor to nudge that line just so. And wouldn't you know it? The guy who signed their map lost his license 2 years ago for zoning fraud out in Asheville. I dug deeper. Old habits die hard when your idea of a hobby is auditing public records for fun. It took 3 days, 2 blisters, and a close encounter with an angry copperhead. But I walked that border with my Trimble rover and shot a new set of data points every 30 feet. By the end, I had a centimeter-accurate model of my property line. When I compared it to the HOA's official map, the boundary shift was as slick and deliberate as a card trick at a crooked casino. I bundled up the proof, deeds, GPS files, engineering licenses, you name it, into a 40-page report and handed it to my lawyer, Sam Whitaker, who read through it twice before muttering, "Well, son, they just drew a line through your living room and called it theirs." Cease and desist went out the next morning, certified mail signature required, polite but sharp as a fish hook. Most folks would back down, not Sloan. Instead, she summoned me, literally summoned in her words, to the next HOA board meeting. I showed up in jeans and a flannel that still smelled like hydraulic oil. Their boardroom looked like a budget country club, fake ferns, hissing Keurig, everyone eyeing me like I was the skunk at the garden party. Sloan started off all honey and venom, "Mr. McRae, we understand you're confused about property lines." I cut her off. "Your surveyor lost his license for fraud. That's not confusion, that's forgery." Dead silence except for one board member who actually choked on her coffee. Sloan blinked, then smiled wider like a python adjusting its jaw. "Those are serious accusations," she said. "They're also true," I replied, sliding my report across the table. "You have until Friday to get your crews off my land." She didn't even look at it, just held up her glossy map to the room and declared, "This is the community's lake. It's in our marketing materials. Our name, our vision." The homeowners clapped politely, not sure if they were applauding logic or lunacy. On my way out, I caught her whispering to her lawyer, "He's just some hermit. By the time he sues, we'll have it built." And that's when it hit me. She wasn't playing by the rules. She was playing for time. Once those cabins went up, she figured no judge would order them torn down. She was betting I'd fold. But see, that's where she made her second mistake. Within a week, the bulldozers came, flattened the old oaks my granddad planted in '48, tore up the slope, poured foundations like they owned the place. I filmed every minute, time date, GPS overlay, called the sheriff. Deputy Carter showed up, looked at my survey, looked at theirs, and did what sheriffs do best in these parts, shrugged and said, "Looks like a civil dispute. Good luck in court." Sloan smiled, that brittle, sun-damaged smile. "Thank you, officer." So there I was, walking the edge of the damage, 50 acres of churned-up dirt and shattered history, air thick with diesel and arrogance, wondering how many more ways I could lose before I even started fighting back. That night, surrounded by a century's worth of blueprints and ledgers, I found what I needed. My great-grandfather Colin's handwritten notes about the dam maintain operating elevation at 1838 foot for safety, structural capacity at 1845 foot, 7 extra feet, use as needed. Most folks don't realize what 7 feet of water means. Sloan didn't. Every single one of those new cabins sat between 1839 and 1844 feet inside the natural lake bed. I checked every document, every right-of-way. I even called the state's Department of Environmental Quality just to ask, hey, what happens if unpermitted structures get flooded in a legal easement? The answer, builders are liable, not the dam operator. Bingo. Now, I'm not the type to move without warning. When every last cabin was up, power plumbing open house parties, I drafted a formal notice, sent it certified to the HOA, to Sloan herself, routine inspection to restore lake to high water elevation of 1845 foot, remove movable property within 48 hours. I pictured her rolling her eyes, tossing it in the trash. Didn't matter. Gravity doesn't care if you read the memo. On the day of mist, curled off the lake like breath, I called county dispatch, routine maintenance, nothing to see here, and walked down to the dam. Inside the cool limestone gallery, I spun the twin cast iron wheels, just like my father taught me, each crank a small act of inheritance. The gears groaned, water levels crept up slow and steady, an inch at a time. By noon, you could measure it at the gauge 1839, then 1840, 1842 by 4 o'clock. Contractors started to notice puddles. Homeowners started to panic. Sloan swept in, barking orders in her white Escalade, her phone glued to her ear. I watched from my porch, sipped my coffee, and murmured, "Try calling gravity, Sloan. Let me know if it picks up." By sunset, the lowest cabins had water at the doors. A generator sparked and died. Folks ran in circles, shouting, phones flashing. At 5, the first cabin went under. Curtains fluttered once, then vanished beneath the rippling surface. Sheriff Carter came back exhausted. "Mr. McCrae, the HOA president, says you're flooding community property." I handed him my folder deed maintenance log, certified notice, the whole paper trail. "I'm just restoring the lake to its legal mark." He flipped through, nodded, turned to Sloan. "Did you get this notice?" she sputtered. "Signed for by you, ma'am, 2 days ago." He tipped his hat. "More of a civil matter, looks like." Sloan's face went scarlet. "He's washing away our investment. Maybe next time check your elevation before you build in a flood easement." By midnight, porch lights flickered out. Rain stopped and the lake held at 1845 foot, exactly as engineered. I watched the moon shimmer across the drowned cabins. Didn't feel proud, didn't feel sorry, just balanced. The next morning, environmental inspectors showed up, clipboards and boots, walking the shoreline, snapping photos. "This is going to be one hell of a report," one muttered. Down at the main gate, chaos. Homeowners yelling at the board, news crews rolling up. Sloan, drenched and furious, waving at my lodge, screaming about sabotage. My lawyer showed up grinning. Well, you sure stirred up a hornet's nest. Gravity's the real god here, Evan. You just gave it permission. Within days, the fines came environmental penalties, insurance claims, denied developer stock tanked lawsuits flying every direction. Even the county attorney called me up, legally and hydrologically. Mr. McCrae, you were in the right. That's a first hydrologically. Word spread fast. The story went viral. Headlines like HOA ignored warnings, built cabins in easement Lake Kestrel. Strikes back. Folks in town started waving when I drove by. Teenagers stopped me at the gas station. Hey, you're the lake guy? Sloan. She vanished to Florida. Rumor has it probably trying to sell condos to alligators now. The HOA dissolved developer bankrupted the land. My land legally reverted back to the McCrae Trust. The cabins became a ghost story, roofs glinting beneath the water, herons nesting on chimneys, wildflowers swallowing the driveways. I hired crews to salvage what was left planted. Willows and native grass watched the lake heal scar by scar. By spring, eagles nested in the cove, the first in decades. The county even put up a new sign, Kestrel Conservation Preserve. No unauthorized construction. No exceptions. Sometimes the neighbors who lost their cabins came by. One Grace Howren left a note. Thank you. We didn't know what Sloan was doing. At least now the truth is out. I tucked it in my journal right beside my great-granddad's sketches. Some people build monuments out of stone. My family builds them out of consequences. Years later, they asked me to speak at the Environmental Law Symposium over at the university. I told them, you can argue with people, you can argue with courts, but you can't argue with gravity. The students laughed, but a few took notes. Maybe they'll remember. Look, I'm not saying what happened at Lake Kestrel was some grand act of vengeance. I just followed the blueprint my great-grandfathers and Newtons. The dam listens, but it never forgets. Neither do I. So if you ever find yourself facing down a platinum queen with a clipboard and a plan, remember sometimes the quietest force in the world is a lake waiting to rise. Now let me ask you, where do you draw the line between justice and revenge? Did the lake do the right thing, or did I go too far? Drop your thoughts below. Share your own stories about standing up for what's right. And hey, if you love a good bit of HOA karma with receipts, you know what to do. Hit subscribe. Let's make sure this lesson floats a little further.